Hey everybody, it's Greg Harrelson here, and of course, I'm joined by Abe Safa, and as usual, and we just want to just share with you some additional information that we feel that you're going to find helpful, within our Real Geeks ecosystem. So, Abe, as always, thank you for being here with me.
A pleasure to be here, Greg.
So it's business planning time, right?
Yeah.
We actually had a big company meeting last week. Great turnout, well over 130, 140 people there, and we were talking about business planning. And I just thought it might be important that we bring that to the Real Geeks family and share some things on kind of how we're approaching the 2023 business planning or business planning for 2023. One of the things that I believe in my heart is the business plan and business planning is probably going to be more important in 2023 than it has been for the last 3, maybe 4 years. It's definitely 3 years, but I think it's just more critical now that we take it very serious. And we want to talk about some things that have to be considered before you start, building your business plan. But just on the notion of just business planning in general, Abe, where's your head on that thought? What are your thoughts on business planning right now?
Yeah, let me lay the foundation first so people understand where we're coming from, because
Okay.
most people don't do their next year business plan until like December, right? And
Okay. Yeah.
this is
Good point.
October 3rd. We've already
Yeah.
done ours. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
So
a good. Yeah. And so why do we do that?
so our thinking is this: there's always going to be a lag, right? In real estate, you don't just take a listing today and then sell it today and then get the check today, right? You talk to a lead, you warm it up, you take a listing, you get it on the market, you market it. By the time you give an offer, by the time it goes into escrow and then it closes, usually that could be a 90-day window.
Sure.
So what you and I have always talked about is our next year always starts October 1st.
Yes.
So for us, 2023 really started 2-3 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
October 1st is what we look at. Whatever we generate right now, anything we generated this morning or yesterday or the first, is business that we're going to do in 2023. Okay. Yes, there's going to be some that we maybe close out at this year. It could happen. We take a listing today, it sells quickly and it closes. It's possible, but it's really thinking, okay, how do I start building momentum? So come January 1st, I don't just show up at the office starting from zero, that I've got momentum going on. I've got a bunch of pendings that are closing in January. How do we start off 2023 on the right note? And the way you do that is by starting October 1st, thinking, okay, whatever I do now is going to be next year's income. That's kind of like the thinking behind it.
Yeah, we're building momentum, right? It takes time to build momentum, and the rule of thumb is for if you want to be selling at a certain pace, closing transactions at a certain pace, and it's a greater pace than you're currently on right now, then it'll take you 90 days for any of your adjustments to actually take hold and start producing the result. So if you're wanting to increase, then you got to start the process 90 days beforehand. That's kind of so it's almost like our fiscal year is October 1st to October 1st versus our calendar year is January to January or January to December 31st. It's kind of like that. That's kind of how I've always thought about it. So a couple things about business planning. I think that you wrote here what must be considered, because I think that's it's there. When we're going into the business class, we planning for the new year, you must be clear on the current trends of the market. Now, this is not prices are going up and going down. That would be trends, yes, of more of sales trends or data of your local market. But let's just talk about the industry in general. There are some things going on that's going to influence the way you build your business plan. One of them that I wrote down is that it takes a lot more conversations to set an appointment right now. So, if you're getting, X amount of leads and X amount of leads, let's say you got 10 leads, and out of those 10 leads, you set 7 appointments. Okay. You might be thinking those numbers are ridiculous. It's fine if they're ridiculous. This is a hypothetical. If you got 10 leads and you set 7 appointments, right now, those same 10 leads, you might only be setting 4 appointments. And so I don't like that. I'm not happy about that. but that's probably not something that I control. That's probably a condition of the market. And so if I'm going to be going into business planning, then I know that it may take 100% more swings to actually get a hit. So if you're building a business plan on the number of conversations you need to have on an annual, on a monthly or on a weekly basis, I've got to talk to 100 people this week, whatever your number is, whatever your number was last year to reach your goal, it'll take double that to reach last year's goal. So it's going to take twice as much to reach last year's goal. But this year, you probably want your goal to be higher than last year's goal. So then what does that mean? Doesn't that mean that if it's going to take 100% more to just reach last year's goal, then it may take more than 100% more to reach next year's goal? Now, it'll be up to you to listen to this and say, I don't want to do that. I don't think I can do that. That's fine. But try to argue the scenario. And maybe you could argue and debate with me and be right. Maybe you are. I'm not always right. But my logic tells me if it takes more conversations to get the same and a lot more to actually grow, then you're probably going to have to do a lot more. Again, I wish that wasn't the truth. But the last thing you want to do is be in denial going into writing your 2023 business plan. Any thoughts on that, Abe?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I love how you guess at these numbers, and they're pretty accurate. Because I track my numbers religiously, and they're pretty accurate to what tracking numbers are. Mm-hmm. So we've been telling you guys for years and years to track your numbers. Okay, if you've been tracking your numbers, you've got a really good benchmark. You know exactly how many conversations you've had. You know exactly how many appointments that translated into. You know exactly how many buyers, contracts, deals, listings, et cetera, that made. If you haven't, it's going to make it more difficult for you to kind of forecast what needs to be done.
Yes.
Okay. And that goes back to, look, I like what Greg's mentioned. Whatever you've been doing, double it. Okay. I don't typically make a lot of guarantees. I'm going to make you one guarantee right now. If you do the same activities you did last year, you are not going to have the same production this year as you had last year.
That's a good prediction, Abe.
There's no question about it.
I'm betting on you on that one. I'm betting on anybody want to bet against that. I'm betting on Abe.
There's no question about it. Look, the market's changed. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the estimates are all over the place. Estimates could be down 20%, down 40% as far as number of transactions. I know you're feeling it out there in your market. Okay. I know it's getting tougher. I know you're having more and more conversations with people to set appointments, to even book showings, whatever. It's happening across the board. Okay, so you can sit here and just ride the wave with the market. And if it's down 20%, then you make 20% less money. If it's down 40%, you make 40% less money. Or you can get ahead of the curve like Greg is suggesting here and double the number of people you're talking to, double the number of follow-up calls, double the number of text messages you send, emails, postcards, whatever it is, door knocking, whatever it is you do for lead gen. If you double it, you're going to get ahead of the curve, build some momentum now through the holidays, and then be positioned for 2023 to have a very strong year and not just be a victim of what the market is going to bring you.
Yeah. Yeah. As you're talking, Abe, so it's like, if I'm the listener of today's talk, already I'm like, holy crap, these guys are telling me I'm going to have to do all that. Well, I really think that, like, if we want to grow, yes, we're going to have to do all that. We can escape doing all that if we're okay accepting a lower level of production. And I'm not saying that as being passively aggressive, like that would be a wrong thing. No, it's okay. Like if you're doing 30 deals and you're okay with doing 20 deals and your family's okay and and everything's fine, then you do not have to do this. And in some cases, there's listeners out there that it's okay that if they have a small little decrease, no big deal. It's not going to change anything. But if you're somebody who's relying on the money that you're used to making, and if you start making less, there becomes a problem with you financially, personally, then you don't have much of an option here. Because there's going to be a pain or an inconvenience either way. There's a pain and an inconvenience to grow your business, and there's a pain and inconvenience to not actually change your activities. Where not going to avoid the pain and inconvenience unless you're willing to accept less income. So that it's just, again, I hate to come across so confronting and saying this is like it or not, but this is it or not.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't mind being passive aggressive, so I'll be passive aggressive.
Well, they're used to it with me. I just want to make sure that it's not the only way, but it's the way for most of us.
Here's what we don't want. Look, if you're okay, as Greg mentioned, if you're okay making 20%, 30%, 40% less money next year, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. What we don't want to see is you come out of 2023 and say, oh my God, that was a terrible market. There was nothing I could do about it. There was a lot you could do about it. There was nothing that you chose to do about it. And again, that's okay. If you choose to do nothing about it, that's okay. But I can guarantee you're going to make less money. And if you're fine with that, then keep doing things the way you're doing them.
Yeah. The other one is we're going to have more fall throughs. Yeah. Okay. And we've already seen massive, like in the mortgage industry, I've heard so many statistics. I can't recall what they were, but it's like upwards up to 30%, where they had 30% of the deals falling through that were pending, ready to go, and they fell through. Buyer ended up backing out. The interest rate went up again and they hadn't locked. For whatever reasons there are, massive fall throughs. And we probably can anticipate we're going to continue to experience some fall throughs because banks could start tightening up their lending practices, things that we don't control. So in that scenario, then I would say when you start doing your business planning and you look at how many contracts do I need to write in order to close a deal, that number is now you have to write more contracts to close a deal. So if you were proud in your numbers in saying, gosh, for every 2 contracts I wrote, I actually got 1 contract ratified and closed. Even if you're really solid, that statistic probably doesn't hold right now. So in your business plan, not only do you have to put in more contacts to get an appointment, but now you have to go on more appointments to actually write a contract. And then you'll have to write more contracts to get one to close. So every number is kind of like loosened up a little bit where it requires a little bit more effort. So again, I think that what I'm really saying here, Abe, is the ratios that worked in last year's business plan, those ratios do no longer apply for this year's business plan. But if you say, but Greg, so what should my ratios be? Then it's going to be 100% more contacts. And it's probably going to have to be 50%, 25% more contracts written, somewhere in that range. We won't really know what the number has to be until we're talking about this in 2024. So right now, in order to hedge your bet on yourself, go ahead and start moving those numbers up.
Yeah, I mean, those ratios are going to change with the market conditions.
Yes.
So the same ratios that worked the last 2 years weren't working 4 years ago. Right. So as the market changes, your numbers, your business plan has to change to adapt to what's about to come, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And again, hopefully you've been tracking your numbers, and then it's an easy decision to make at that point, or easy calculation to make at that point, I should say, not a decision. If you haven't been tracking your numbers, then you just have to guess high. And the reason we mention things like fall through and number of contacts is we typically, we pick the goal that we want, whether it's transaction wise or dollar wise, and then we back into it.
Yeah.
Meaning that, okay, if it typically takes us, 20 contacts to get a listing, every 1.2 listings I take, I get a sale. Every sale I get, I make X number of dollars. All I'm saying is go back to those numbers and then tweak them all up a little bit. Now it's going to take, 35 contacts instead of 20 contacts to get a listing. It's going to take 1.5 listings because there's going to be more expireds. Okay, there's going to be, and then for every, if you typically close 90% of your contracts in escrow, then back that down to maybe 80%. But it's making those little tweaks to adjust to what is going to be happening in the market and what we're already seeing in the market.
Yeah. If I was going to make it like super simple for everybody, and I give you, okay, what's one personal adjustment that you can make as a real estate agent? And that is this. You've heard coaches saying you need to generate 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's what you've heard. You've told yourself that you're going to start making some calls to your database. And what ended up happening is you did a little bit inconsistently. So like you've really people have built a decent business. I'm doing a little bit of focused and scheduled calls to their database inconsistently. If you actually, all you would have to do is apply 1.5 hours every day, 5 days a week for 220 work days a year, 1.5 hours for 220 work days a year. By the way, that's like a banker, how many days a banker works. 1.5 hours for 220 days for the year, problem solved. Now, some people, well, Greg, I do 2 hours, not for 220 days a year. Well, I did 3 hours, not for 220 days a year. You may have done 3 hours focused for like 20 days. And then another 20 days, you did like 2 hours. And then for 100 days, you did 0. And then one time you called 1 or 2 people. And then when you tally it up, it was less than 1.5 hours of scheduled, focused lead generation time for 220 days. So don't think that the mountain's too high for you to climb. It's literally 1.5 hours for 220 days solves the problem.
Yeah, and if you're already calling 3 hours a day, you're like, well, I don't want to call any more than 3 hours a day. Then here's what else you could do. And I did this with a couple of agents. I think we did it for 30 days or so. Turn off your cell phones during that time when you're making outbound calls. Don't check your email. We did that for 30 days with these 2 agents, and their production went up 40%. They didn't work any more hours, okay? But because they eliminated distractions, text messaging, social media, email, their production went up 40%. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of ways to do it. But the bottom line is you're going to have to talk to more people. You're going to have to write more contracts. You're going to have to go on more showing appointments. It's just your production, your generating, your activities just all have to go up in order for you to do the same business and hopefully do some more.
Yeah. Well, good, Abe. The last thing that I'm going to say that I had written down on my notes is this, and then we'll let everybody go here. And that is, most of our hot leads are now just warm leads, meaning like, our hot leads were hot leads because they were excited about the interest rates. They were excited about the energy that was around buying properties, excited about hearing and seeing all these people making all this money in appreciation. And now they're seeing higher interest rates, negative talk about the real estate, talk about prices coming down. So some of the people that were motivated to buy 6 months ago are not nearly as motivated. Now, my point in that is the whole point is to stress the importance of going in and making sure that every single day you have in your business plan, every single day, you're focusing on lead generation. Because right now, if you just take an inventory of what you called your hot leads and ask yourself, how long have you been calling them hot leads? And then we look at last year, we look at like what was your definition of a hot lead? Well, my hot leads last year, like I would get a property, they would buy it immediately. They would sight unseen. That was a hot lead. Now, they're not buying it sight unseen. They're not even trusting your video. They're telling you, I'll be there in 2 weeks. And then when they see it, they say, well, I'd like to see another one because I'm sure there's more coming on. But have you changed your definition of a hot lead? Most people have changed their definition of a hot lead, which now is kind of like some of the people that we're calling hot leads is actually warm leads. And the best way to find more hot leads is you got to go through more people. So on your 2023 business planning, make sure you consider the things that have shifted in the market, and that should be influencing the ratios and how much volume you do of the activities that we discussed today. Hey, that's about it for me.
Yeah, let me add one more thing. So for a couple of
Please
years
do.
now, we've been saying you want to do more business, talk to more people. And now it's you want to do the same business, you got
Yes.
to talk to more people.
Yeah.
The game has changed.
Yeah. The game has changed.
Yeah.
And guess what? We all have the tools and the knowledge to actually win in this new game. We just have to change the activities. That's it. All right, Abe. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for watching.